Objective, relating graphs to events. Vic number 1. Graphs are used to show the relationship between two variables. The necessary skills for working with graphs. First, interpreting graphs. Second, sketching graphs. And third, analyzing graphs. Interpreting graphs. A student walks and takes a bus to get home from home to school each day. So they're going from home to school. Describe what the graph shows by labeling each part. So here's a graph of your commute home. That means your trip home. You see here, this is the total distance traveled, and this is the time. At first, the graph is increasing, so a positive slope, increasing rather slowly. Then it levels off. Then it's increasing much steeper. And then it's still increasing, but not as quickly. So where it's increasing, but not very fast, this is where you're walking to the bus stop. Then when you get there, at the bus stop, you're waiting for the bus. Then once you get on the bus travels a lot faster than when you walk. So this slope here is steeper than when you're walking. And then after you get off the bus, you walk to your house. So you're walking, you're speeding, like you have a speed, but it's not as fast as when you're taking the bus. So this is an example of how to interpret a graph. Not only do we need to know the time traveled and distance, but we need to know what is happening. All right, after interpreting, we're going to talk about sketching a graph. A plane is flying from New York to London. Sketch a graph of the plane's altitude during the flight. Label each section. So here's a graph of a trip to London. We have the altitude, that means the height the plane is in the air, and the time that the plane is in the air. So at first you're on the ground and you increase very quickly in height. So the altitude goes up very quickly. This is when you're taking off. After you've been in the air for a little while, the speed may be constant, but you're not getting any higher. So this is your cruising speed. After you've been in the air for a while and you're almost to your destination, you start to descend. So that means to go down. So we see the graph drops a little bit, and then it kind of hangs around for a minute. This is where pilots are waiting to land. So circling the runway, waiting for their spot in line, and then the plane goes down very quickly. This is your landing. All right, so you know how a plane flies, right? We all know it takes off, then it hangs around in the air for a while, it starts to go down, you circle the airport, and then you land. So based on what you know about flying, you should be able to draw the graph. And the third skill that you need for working with graphs is analyzing graphs. A car travels at a steady speed. Which graph could you use to show the speed of a car, and which could you use to show the distance traveled? And explain. So I have two graphs. Here we both have time on our x-axis, and our y-axis are not labeled yet. So if something doesn't change over time, so we're talking about a car traveling at a steady speed. So in this case, speed will go on our y-axis because speed is steady. It is not changing over time. So it says, which graph could you use to show the speed? That would be graph 1. Which could you show the distance traveled? So as time goes on and you're going at a steady speed, then distance is increasing. So you see that the line is going with an upward slope. So distance traveled is increasing. And that would be graph 2. And the word for today is orange.